4, 3, 2, 1.
Liam Dempsey. Material changes over the course of 10 years, agency owners, that's how we'll jump into this episode. So what's the biggest change for your agency over the last 10 years?
And the biggest is really no code. In the early days, it was child theming, it was custom theming, it was underscores theme, it was child theme of Genesis with code on top of that. And with the rise of reliable, flexible, scalable, no-code solutions, that we just don't do much custom development. It's a few lines in a functions file or a small, very purpose-built plugin that's 2, 4, 6, 8 hours of a developer's time, nothing significant. And the benefit of that is that we're able to turn around solutions for clients, for businesses, for nonprofits really quickly. Hey, of course, we coming to you really late. We have this big thing going on next week. How can we highlight on the homepage? Well, we could add a new row that just highlights that to your homepage. We'll follow the design. Here's a rough sketch of it. I can get that done late tonight, early tomorrow morning, depending on the relationship and the need and the budget. And it's done, and it's on production. And so it's been really, really helpful for that, to be able to respond to clients very, very quickly in ways that they find very, very valuable, and therefore then they come to rely on how we design more, because they know that we'll deliver quickly and in a reliable, professional way.
Maybe we'll get deeper into AI, but one of the things that I hear in the discourse of WordPress and building websites for clients is, hey, AI is going to take up all of that brochureware type of sites, right? Clients will be able to do this themselves. Heck, they might not even need WordPress, depending on what WordPress does with AI. But I'm curious, from what you see, even in today's world, where oftentimes I hear people say, you got to sell the bigger customer, you got to sell the bigger project. I think there's this layer of trust that clients are looking for, where it's just like, I don't want to do this. Even if AI can do it for me, I don't want to do it. And I just need somebody that I can trust to do this. And I think, I know that there is a business there, because you're proof of it, and so many others are proof of it, that you don't always have to pursue the big client, the complex projects. I would steer away from it if I was back in the agency days myself. I did it. It's not fun. It comes with many more problems.
Yeah, sure.
So what's your take on AI in that entry level site for a customer, and how you see building a scalable business through just rolling up your sleeves and putting out a good product and not going that super big, custom, complex project?
So I'll start with the AI, and I think there's always scope for new tools, right? I mean, this year it's AI. Previous years it was no code. Previous years it was, just think back and look at what it was.
NFTs.
Right. Well, whatever it might be. So, as a smaller business, as an aging professional, I have to stay close to what the new tools are. Do I need to be bleeding edge? No. Do I need to be cutting edge? No. But I need to be close enough to know that I can get cut. And so, how are we using it? Not as much as other agencies. We're not using it to build themes or to build the entire website. I don't think AI is there yet, given the no code proficiency. If we can get good at one particular suite, and certainly we have our preferred suite, there are a lot of good ones, we have ours, then probably by the time I and my colleagues mastered the prompts to get the kind of consistent outputs that we need, we could probably have a handful of things built. Did that scale? No, not really, but we don't have to learn as quickly necessarily. And then I think, building on what you said around the client doesn't want to do it. Yes, they could, they don't want to. Could I have AI do my books? I have no idea, but I don't want to do it, and I don't want to be responsible for it. And
Right.
to some extent, I don't want to be legally responsible for it. It's very
Right.
nice to say the accountant told me to sign here, and I can't be an idiot about it. No taxes this year. Well, that can't quite be right. But, like, hey, taxes are a little bit lower than last year. Great, I can sign that. So that's really where LB Design comes in, is that we want relationships where our clients leaders are intellectually engaged in the projects, but that they trust our expertise and leadership. So they can tell us about their industry. They could let us know what's the right way to say this, how they think about things, but then we can bring our marketing, our design experience. And over time, then it is all about trust. And hey, Liam, we know you don't do this. We need this done. It would save us a lot of time finding somebody if you would do it. Well, I don't do that. So it's you, so I'll do it if you ask nice, but I'm going to
Yeah.
charge you more time than if you went out to the marketplace, because where it takes somebody who knows what it's doing, going to be 4, it might take me 8, it might take me 12. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
fine, because then I don't have to spend that 5, 8, or 12, says the business owner. So I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think there is a lot to be said for acting in a transparent way, being candid about things, and letting people know that we're eager for clients to stick around for years. And most
Yeah.
of ours do. And I do a lot around the sales side of that. We don't have to get into that now,
Hmm.
but just kind of pitching on the transparency side of things. Are there other people who make better websites than me? Absolutely, there are.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but we trade on quality and transparency.
I think where you might be going with that too, on like the sales side, is because I think this often gets overlooked, especially for the amateurs. I guess I can use that phrase, amateur agency owner, who might be listening to us. Like, they're just starting their agency. They're starting their freelance practice. They want to grow to an agency. And oftentimes they can get encumbered by thinking of, okay, God, I got to do this. I read online that I have to do this $10,000 to $20,000 project. Okay, what goes into a $10,000 to $20,000 project? Start thinking about all of these things. And then they go to sell the customer with this big, heavy quote proposal. And they're not completely comfortable with it as the freelancer. The agent, the customer can clearly see it on their face, right? I've admitted to this because I've been there in my early days. Like, I'm trying to pitch you this big project. I hope you can understand what I'm telling you. And they're looking at you cross-eyed, like, I don't even know if you know what you're talking about. And what that leads to is, well, you lose a client. You spend all that time, all that effort to try to build this big proposal to land that big deal, when maybe you probably could have sold them, like, how about a $3,500, portfolio site, brochure site, and then you upsell later on, not in some kind of like poor salesy way, but you could look at the customer and go, well, I understand you might need e-commerce in the future. So, but instead of me just wrapping this all up in this big proposal right now, maybe I'll sell you the site for $3,500, let you know e-commerce is a possibility, but then a year later, knock on your door, say, hey, are we ready for that to extend to e-commerce now, as an example, right? Like, selling low, landing the customer, and then having a full healthy cycle of upsells and add-ons, if you want, like, if that's the kind of business you want. So all of that is to say, is like, I don't think the customer or the client always needs to accept big, massive projects, right? You could sell them something that's just super valuable, gets them 80% of the way there, and you'd have a better, less stressful agency. It's the way that I see it anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, one of the things that I ask my clients is, like, what if we built that? Could you use it? Do you have time to run it? Like, I want a blog. Well, how often are you? I mean, that's that's not a big e-commerce,
Yeah.
10, 15,000. Are you ever going to blog? Well, I might want to. Yeah, I know you might want to, but why pay for us to do it if you can't? If business is booming, you're like, hey, guess what? I've hired some new people. I've got a little bit more time. I want to grow my reputation with the industry and the sector. I'm going to start to blog and do videos now. Great. Well, now we'll take the time to invest in that. So I think you're onto something there, and that's the value of no. We won't sell you that, or at least we recommend against that, right? We don't think that's right. If push comes to shove and you want to pay me to do it, if it's legal, moral, and ethical, I'll do it. But I think you and I have been around long enough that we've built functionality for clients that never goes anywhere because they don't have the capacity. And so, we push back. They say, no. Okay, we build it, we deliver. And then It just sits
Yeah.
there, and then they come back a year or two later and say, we probably
Yeah.
shouldn't have.
So I'm wondering, in your business, there's this thing that I haven't put a perfect marketing phrase to it yet, or like an acronym or anything like that. But one of the things when I was running my agency and using Gravity Forms many, many years ago, Gravity Forms often has like this, we have like this stair step approach. Whereas like if you're a freelancer, you might just buy our $59 entry level license and you're just putting up contact forms. Pretty easy. You just want it nice and trusted plugin, getting the updates from a team that you trust. And then you suddenly get a customer who's like, well, you need to do MailChimp or Brevo or ConvertKit. And then you look at Gravity Forms, you go, okay, the middle tier, I'll upgrade my license. And now I can serve this set of customer. And then suddenly you get a customer as your agency grows and you get bigger customers. Somebody says, well, I've got Salesforce integration. Like, where does Salesforce come? How do you, well, then you get the elite license with Salesforce and like all these other like top tier add-ons, and Gravity Forms can kind of grow with your agency. Not trying to turn this into a direct ad for Gravity Forms, of course, but how has Gravity Forms grown with your agency? And are there any like case studies or customers that you've been able to like build a solution around because of the add-ons of Gravity Forms, or how you've like connected the dots with like Zapier, MailChimp, Salesforce, stuff like that?
Yeah. So, in advance of this conversation, I spent some time thinking about Gravity Forms, my relationship with the tool, and the manner in which I've used it. And I was delightfully reminded that I've been a Gravity Forms customer since 2013, 12 years ago. And to give a little shout out to Brad Williams, we're, WordPress meetupping locally, and he was talking about it. I'm like, it's $100. That's kind of a no-brainer. Let me just buy it.
Yeah.
I trust Brad. He's much more of an advanced developer than I'll ever be. Let me just go buy it. And you're right. I got it because it was a good forum. And I mean, now we're using it for donations and some e-commerce and some email subscriptions and some. I even use it on my own site to accept the occasional credit card payment for a smaller job from a new client. I just send them to a hidden page, and there's enter your name, enter your invoice number by hand, and put your credit card details in and pay me. So it really has grown a lot, and not just the plugin itself with all its own add-ons that the team at Rocket Genius, the Gravity Forms makes, but the community around it, the folks, the Gravity Whizzes of the world have been huge. Gravity Whiz has been a big part of our usage. I was checking on them, and I got Gravity Forms in 2013 and Gravity Whiz in 2014. But in terms of using it then for clients, I have one client that I've worked with for 10 or 11 years now. And they're a local daycare provider and hugely respected in the community. Been around for 30 years. And they're not tech savvy, but they are not tech averse. And they appreciate the value in investing in tech, but their first solution is not, I need a better tech system. But they say, this isn't working, let's spend the money. So the great client, exactly what you want. Somebody that's not going to sign a check on everything, but when it's time, they're willing to have a conversation about that. So they were using a third-party summer camp registration tool. That tool was old, like 1999, 2000, 2001 tool. And
Yeah.
it was powerful, but it was old, and it looked old, it felt old, it was clunky. But the tool itself made all its money on the back of payments. So when you registered for the camp, the SaaS took their cut. For whatever reason, my brilliant client was able to just tell their customers, the moms and the dads and the parents and the caregivers sending their children to their camp, don't pay, bring a check in after you register. And it came up a few times with the SaaS, and the SaaS is like, we're big enough, we don't care, keep using it for free, we're not going to kick you off, we're not going to support you, so don't call us for support, but we're not going to kick you off. And eventually I kind of talked to my client about this, like, it's clunky, it's old, do you like using it? No, it's a headache, but it's free. And so, but eventually they just got frustrated internally. They weren't getting pushback from their parents, but they were getting internal, it's just not worth it. So why don't we use Gravity Forms? Why don't we create a form? We'll mirror all the good things about the current SaaS, and we'll keep it simple. We don't want users to register. Great. That keeps it really simple. Most of the families that are coming in. Great. We don't have to allow them to save their form. If they want to make changes after they've registered, they shoot you an email. Great. We'll keep it simple. We could have it so they could save their application. They could come back a week later, but we don't have to. We can scale it as much as you want. And so we got that all together and launched in time for their summer camp registration. And it sold out within a day. And I was pretty nervous just because I had never done that with Gravity Forms. Reliable tool, but the first time you go to the cliff's edge with a good hang glider, you don't know, right? But it worked. Gravity Forms worked. Gravity SMTP worked. Gravity Wiz. We did the nested child forms. It all worked, and then pushed the data right into Google Sheets for the childcare to use, the childcare center to use. So it was just brilliant, and it was great to be able to do that, and no parent complaints, which I thought was a huge win. No parent compliments, but I'll take no complaints over no compliments any day of the week. And that was great. And then just one other solution where we used it is an Irish dance company and an Irish dance academy. They're probably one of the most well-known in the world. They're out of the Midwest. And they came and said, hey, we've got 2 weeks before our busiest season, the academy did. And they said, can you build us a site? And, do I have to? They're like, yeah, if you would. But one of the things that they wanted to get to the Gravity Forms is they wanted people to sign up for free trials. And they didn't want to push them into their clunky third-party class management tool. They wanted it to make it nice and easy. So that was a really clean, simple Gravity Form with simple on the front end. It had a lot of choose your school and then choose the dates and times and conditional fields. And lots of conditional notifications, and it worked great. And it was launched on time, and I haven't got the official numbers yet, but they anecdotally are very, very confident that the number of free trials, which is their pipeline, really bumped up this year because the form was so easy to use, the site was so easy to use. So Gravity Forms is really, really helping me and my business. It's like what I talked about earlier about no code. Yes, you can include some snippets of codes and add on for and I've certainly relied on Gravity support for that, but just drag and drop and no code and the like. It's just a fantastically powerful, scalable tool. And I'll stop talking before it sounds too much like an advert.
I mean, one of the biggest challenges, one of the greatest things about Gravity Forms is to be able to solve situations like that for your customer. But it's really hard, at least, my own opinion, and joining Gravity Forms a couple of years ago is to how to tell that story to unlock the magic, right? So I'm part of a nonprofit that my friend started, and I do all the air quotes IT stuff, which includes the WordPress website and of course Gravity Forms for donations. And we run this 3-on-3 basketball tournament once a year. And there was some software that he looked at to help run the tournament. It's all they do is tournaments, not just for basketball, but tournaments for other youth sports and stuff like that for nonprofits. And they wanted $700 a month, and they took the fees, right, of all this stuff. And I'm like, I can just build this with Gravity Forms. And in fact, the requirements that we had at the nonprofit, or the nice to haves, I guess, is okay, hey, parent comes to the website. They want to register up to 4 kids for the team, right? Not just 1, 4. They might have siblings. They might have friends, right? And then notes for each child, select what size shirt they need, age, skill. There's all this stuff that won't be inherently built into what I'll call a boilerplate GoFundMe. Right? GoFundMe is great, massive, big distribution. A lot of people know about it, brand recognition, etc. But it's just the GoFundMe way or nothing. Whereas you can go to Gravity Form and artfully craft a solution that hits exactly what that organization needs. Because they don't want to have to log into WordPress to get that information. They want to pipe it to a Google Sheet, makes life a zillion times easier for them and easier for you, because then you don't have to train them on how to like get entries. So it's magical, but I don't have a real direct question here. It's more of a soapbox moment for me to be like, this is a difficult thing on the marketing side, to be like, how to tell this universal story of like, you could solve anything. You just got to dive in and start, using it. But it's one of the great things about Gravity Forms.
I think, to use your example of that $700 a month, right? I had a nonprofit centered around trying to address what they call senseless gun violence. The founder's daughter was shot in a road rage, race-driven, racially motivated road rage incident. And they do a commemorative memorial awareness raising walk every year. And how do we register people to get that? Because we want to give them a t-shirt. They register, they pay a registration fee, we give them a t-shirt. And can they have an orange t-shirt, or they get a purple one, and what size? And that's Gravity Forms with a few add-ons, right? Yeah. And that's $700 a month for that SaaS you were talking about. Well, you do that twice, maybe day and a half, to get this all up and running in Gravity Forms for year one. So it's not a nothing cost. But then year two is like an hour or two, because we just update the dates, and then the price is $3 more. Okay, we just turn the form back on and change the notification and kind of thing. So that kind of like, yes, there's a cost to doing business, but then it becomes a manageable cost. We get 2 registrations, 3 registrations next year for your walk. We have hundreds of people, and you've paid for that form again. So it is a great tool for businesses of all sizes, but particular smaller ones, because and if that $700 a month SaaS goes belly up, because if they're charging $700 a month, they might. They don't have a solution.
Yeah, it was funny. I remember that conversation. He was like, "Oh, but they give us a free website," and I'm like, "Oh yeah,
they better."
They better. Yeah, they better. And then you look at the website and you're like, "Dude, I can do this with WordPress," and so anyway, but you're absolutely right. You have to build up front. There's no doubt about it. Like when I built the 3-on-3 tournament registration and sales form, it took a while, right? It's, trust me, I had a lot of feedback for the product team. As somebody who had to like build this really complex form with like conditional logic and variable pricing and like all this stuff. And, but this year, and we also do a golf tournament, which I also built out last year. But the golf tournament's it's already running, it's already live. But man, it felt, just like you said, it felt amazing to log in. And they were like, all right, we're going to turn the golf tournament registration on again. And I just went in, duplicate form, change the date. This is now 2025. And I'm like, wow, like this was nice. For sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, I want to keep it into the realm of nonprofits, because we have a lot of nonprofit customers here at Gravity Forms, and I know there's a lot of folks listening to this that service nonprofits. We're in the sense of like WordPress. Man, WordPress is still not easy, right? We look at for a nonprofit that I'm a part of, my friend's wife, her best friend, they're like fairly, like they get it. Like they're not like, what's the internet? Like they understand how to like get around like Google Docs and stuff like that. It's not like totally foreign to them. But there's still a particular challenge of like posts, pages, front, why does it say categories up here? It's like, well, that's because it's a blog and there's categories. Can we get rid of the categories? No, it's part of the theme. Like this is just how like blogging and WordPress works. I'm a little fearful for the ease of use for WordPress, especially in the face of AI and these other platforms. Is there anything you do in particular to soften the blow of tech challenge when you're working with nonprofits, especially those that might have 2 or 3 people jumping in and making a newsletter, making a blog post, uploading events? Like, how do you like soften the blow of that tech? Or is that where they just, hey, we're going to pay Liam to do this work for us?
Well, it's definitely some of both. But I think, if we think to the trades as an example, plumbing at its simplest is there's a pipe that comes into your house, and then you connect that pipe to various places in your house where you want water or not. And at kind of theoretical level, it's very simple, right? And I think WordPress is the same kind of way. We're just building a website that does all these neat and different things. And at one level, yeah, you just create a page, you create a post, you do this, you do that, you publish it. But my example of plumbing is a lot more involved with that. And if you think that's a good description of plumbing, please don't work on your own house. Because it's the nuances, it's the subtlety. So I don't think WordPress is unnecessarily complicated because it does a lot. The no-code solution allows people like me who don't write code to build pretty complex, pretty exact websites. But there's a lot of dials and a lot of levers and a lot of settings that need to be adjusted to get right. So I think it has to be complex in some way. It's not just going to be walk into the room, turn the light switch on. There's more to that. As far as working with clients, a lot of what I do is around education is how often are you going to do this, right? If you're going to be in your website every day, I'll show you, and then you'll remember because you do it all the time. If you want to publish 3 blog posts a year, send it to me because it'll be, I'm already doing the maintenance and the support on the site. It'll be faster and easier, just like, Excel. If you do one thing a year in Excel, it's really, really complicated. If you're in Excel all the time, it's super easy to do it. So I do that. I do a lot of little screencast videos for folks who want to do stuff and who are in it regularly. Show them in 30 seconds, show them in 2 minutes, and then just leave that video on and they bookmark it and come back to it, and then they have it. And I try to do it in a way that I can share it with other clients so I don't have to do Matt's charity specific. If I made it for Matt's charity, I could send it to Elizabeth's charity and just pretend I'm saying Elizabeth instead of Matt in the video. Here you go. And then that kind of economy of scale, I do it once, until the UI changes and I have to redo the video. But that's kind of how I approach it is how often do you want to log in, and what's the best use of your time?
Liam Dempsey, you can find his agency at lbdesign.tv. Type that into the URL. Liam, anywhere else you want folks to go to say thanks? And you also do the WordPress meetup, ? Should people join you over there?
I absolutely invite people to join the Philly Burbs WordPress meetup. I founded and ran that for 12 years, and that seemed like enough. So I turned it over to a couple of really wonderful people, and they now run it day to day, week to week. So yeah, Philly Burbs WordPress meetup, burbswp.com is a great place to find that.
That's it for today's episode. If you could do one more thing for me today, share this episode on social media, your favorite Facebook group or Discord channel. Spread the word about this podcast. It really helps. If you haven't added Breakdown to your favorite podcast app, point your browser to gravityforms.com/breakdown and click the icon of your app to add us and listen to us every 2 weeks. Okay, we'll see you in the next episode.